Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Gilbert Goy, and I'm representing Think Africa here for this panel discussion that's going to be aired on the Innofrugal event that's on impact investment in Africa. So just a little bit about myself. What is it that I do, and what is it that I do in Africa as well? So for the past 5 years, I've been an investor in the property area in the UK, but for the past year, I've gone back to Cameroon, which is my home country, to help out with due diligence in precious metals. So that sector in Cameroon hasn't been very transparent, and the government has been calling on to investors and people who can help to bring some change into that area. So I thought that was a direct call to me, and I just came back from Cameroon some 5 days ago. It was really an interesting time, and I'll be doing what I can with the partners I made in Cameroon to increase the transparency of the supply chain due diligence. So it's really an honor for me today to talk to two other panelists, Tatsuro and Duncan. So you're all welcome for this panel discussion. As I was going through your profiles, I noticed that between you two, you have about at least 10 investments in Africa. And of the 10 investments, I think you have 3 investments that are in the same, about the same sector. You're both investing in health, in loans, and the last one should be analytics. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. I didn't see it that way until I looked at both your profiles, and then I saw that there was something common between you two. So I would like you to introduce yourselves a little bit better, and then we can move right ahead into the question session or into the discussion. So maybe I should get started with Duncan.
Sure, thank you. So I had a background in fintech publishing in the UK, and with no connection with Africa whatsoever. But then through that, I knew about M-Pesa, the mobile money scheme in Kenya, being launched in 2007. And I knew a little bit about microfinance. And I thought it would be fun to go to Kenya and try to implement M-Pesa mobile money in microfinance. So I spent 2 years supporting this as a volunteer effort, supporting a change request with a microfinance institution. And I totally failed at that. I couldn't get them to abandon cash. And so in 2009, out of frustration, I started my own microfinance bank, Musoni. That's 100% mobile money. And it's much more efficient. And through that, I just got sucked into Africa, and I ended up seeing another opportunity and doing another startup. And I ended up spending every 3rd month in Nairobi. And I think now I've done probably 20 investments, all in startups, all either seed stage or very early stage.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. You got quite a huge experience in background. So over to you, Tatsu.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm Tatsuro Shimada, just call me Tatsu. 8 years ago, I started up my own company, and the company name is Konehito, which is running Mamari. Mamari is a media and a community application for moms, for mothers. And the number of users is now 7 million users in Japan. Half of Japanese new moms are using our app. And 4 years ago, my company was acquired by telecom giant company, KDDI. And then I became an angel investor. And last year, I quit my job to seize global startups directory. So I've been to European countries, Middle East countries, African continent countries, Latin American countries, North American countries. And then I met lots of great entrepreneurs and accelerators and VCs. And during my trip, I met terrific, great startups in Africa. And going through this trip, I invested over 8 African startups. So yeah, the trip was amazing, and I felt a great opportunity in Africa. My background is engineer AI, so as an angel investor, now I'm supporting them to share my knowledge to encourage their growth. Briefly, this is kind of my introduction. Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much. And just to remind ourselves here, the topic we'll be discussing today, it's the good, the bad, the ugly of impactful investments in African startups. And I'm positive that we have the best on board to discuss this topic. So one more time, I welcome you on this platform. So let's move right ahead. Let's dive straight into the questions. And so I would like to know, like, how do you select your startups? I mean, what is it you look for? What are the criteria that the startups have to meet up to?
So I normally start with an idea. So by being on the ground and seeing an opportunity, I think there's a gap in the market, or here's a technology solution I can deploy here. And so I normally start with the idea, and I then go hunting for a CEO, and finding the right CEO or the right co-founders is the crucial thing for me. And sometimes that can take a long time. Sometimes I'll nurture an idea for 1, 2, 3 years before I find the person who leaps across the table and says, I want to do that. And then we form a company. I give them a majority of the equity, maybe 60-40, 70-30, give them the seed funding, 50 to 100,000, and then off we go. They tend to be first-time entrepreneurs, and I work very closely with them to train them on all the governance issues, the reporting issues, and then once we have a product and some happy customers, then I can do the introductions to outside investors who tend to be wary of going in at the seed stage. Yeah. So I'm very hands-on, and it's all down to finding the right CEO.
Okay, thanks for that. I might come up with a follow-up question a little bit later. And Tatsu, is it any different from your own end?
Well, it's similar. When it comes to my investment, my most important thing is ambitious entrepreneur. So this is the most important thing, because yeah, let me share one of the portfolio. It is called Flare. Have you ever heard it?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Yeah, let me share. Flare is a kind of 911 for Africa.
Oh, I know Flare.
So, yeah, so in the developed country, for example, Finland or Japan or in the US, so we can call 911 when the accident happens. So the government of a state give us such a function as a country, as a state. But in Africa, there is no such a infrastructure. So in the African continent has 54 countries, but 52 countries don't have such a function, such an infrastructure. So Flare is now aiming to be an infrastructure of Africa. So in Kenya, if the car accident happens, so the driver have to call each hospital by him or her. So it takes maybe 3 hours or 4 hours to get ambulance. So it's unbelievable for developed countries, right? But in Africa, it happens. So FLAIR is now trying to solve this problem. So if you call FLAIR dispatch ambulance directly to the customers and save lives. So this is a kind of ambitious, and this kind of startup can be a infrastructure of the Africa. So these kinds of startups have big potential and so attractive for me because it can be a infrastructure of Africa. So country or state don't make it and cannot make it because not affordable, and it's still unstable for the government. But startup can such a thing. Startup can be an infrastructure of Africa. So that's why I decided to invest them.
And I think FLAIR is a very good example because the two co-founders there are exceptional people and very driven and committed to Africa. Very impressive people.
Right. Yeah, I met two founders in Kenya, Nairobi, and I felt they are trustable, and they are terrific entrepreneurs.
Okay, and maybe a little follow-up question to you, Tatsu, and the emergency response. Yeah, in about how many countries is it working now?
Not only one country, Kenya, but the other government is now offering FLAIR to come. So maybe the FLAIR will expand their business in the near future, other countries.
Oh, okay. I also have another quick follow-up question for Duncan. I mean, you mentioned equity. I didn't get it right. Is it through using other equity platforms like Bank of the Future when you provide this equity to startups, or is it your own money?
No, it's my own money. I'm just a private investor, and if it's a company where it's my idea and I find the CEO, we just do a straight equity split. But it's always important for me that the CEO has control, has ownership, has a majority of the equity. And to be honest, I'm not too fussed as to what the exact split is, but provided they have the majority, then it's quite clear who the CEO is. Right?
Okay. So let's move on to the next question. I mean, with reference to both your investments, so I know Africa comes with lots of challenges. There's the weather, and how do you overcome some of these challenges, like the risk involved, and how do you go about with issues of due diligence?
Well, the due diligence is mainly, since I'm at seed stage, there's nothing there beyond the idea and the character of the CEO. And once I'm comfortable with the CEO, then I'll make my investments conditional on agreeing on a governance structure and a reporting framework. Maybe even using a firm of accountants that I trust as the outsourced CFO. And so I have some comfort in that I'm getting reasonable reports each month. And in the early stage, I'll tend to be in touch on a daily basis in any case. In the early stages, I work very closely with the companies.
Yeah, and over to you, Tatsu. How do you overcome your challenges investing in Africa?
Well, as for due diligence, I think reference is the most important thing because I haven't worked Africa and I'm an Asia, Japanese. So I don't have knowledge about local countries. So to overcome this problem, I use the reference. So the person who is reliable
Yeah.
in local introduced me to entrepreneurs. And so reliable person introduce entrepreneurs to me. So it means I can trust him or her, the CEO or co-founders, because the person who is already trusted. So that's why I don't need to a kind of huge due diligence. I can trust entrepreneur itself, just themselves, and I can understand business model as an entrepreneur. So let's make it.
So how do you get your referrals? Is it someone you?
Well, yeah, actually, some entrepreneurs and VCs are there in Africa, and I have kind of investment network in all over the world because I already exist and I invested some entrepreneurs in the world and in Japan also, and I'm also LP of some VCs. So I asked them to introduce me to someone in Africa. Then I got a kind of network in Africa, and last year I went to 5 or 6 African countries, and then I met great entrepreneurs going through these kinds of references.
Yes, it's not a problem finding the opportunities. Before COVID, I was spending every third month in Kenya and other countries, and just visiting dozens of entrepreneurs, companies, other investors. And so there's a pretty steady pipeline of opportunities coming forward.
Yeah, and I see, Duncan, one of your investments is in the company, is it BitPesa?
Yeah, BitPesa is now called Aza Finance, AZA. And Aza Finance is essentially an FX settlement platform for African countries and the rest of the world. But that's doing very well. They're doing, I haven't checked this month, but 150 to 180 million dollars of transactions each month. So a very interesting company.
Okay. Yeah, because I just watched a video on them, I think a 25-minute video, because I mean, I just like how the way they did it. I mean, using mobile money and then the crypto side of it. And
but see, BitPesa or Aza Finance is a very interesting company because, as is often the case, the idea I originally had has morphed into something completely different.
Okay.
So the original idea was just a plaything of doing Bitcoin to mobile money. And actually, that didn't work out so well. I mean, we did it, but there were all sorts of challenges. But then there came a real need to use the infrastructure they created to do some settlement in different African currencies. And then they stumbled across a huge market demand. So I have to give full credit to the management team there because it wasn't the idea I originally had.
Well, I think you also get some credit for kickstarting the whole process.
I stumbled across a good team.
Oh, okay. I get it. Well, we still have time on our, we still have about 5 minutes to go for the questions. So we can move on to the next question. So yeah, this one is more like helping those who haven't gotten started yet with investing. So what advice would you give to someone who's just getting started? I mean, how much money would they need and what they need to take into account?
Well, I think one of the attractions of investing in startups in Africa is you don't need a huge amount of money. I mean, a few tens of thousands is often enough for a startup in Africa. The burn rate is very low. But the one thing I think is essential is to go there meet the people, be a regular visitor, and stay in very close touch. I think it's very hard to do it remotely.
Yeah, I think I also share that the aspect of going to meet the people, because it's been almost a year and I've been trying to get partners in Cameroon, that's my country, for to do the due diligence for precious metals, and nothing happened until I went to Cameroon. Yeah, and immediately I went, like, things started changing, and then now I'm on phase 2 of the whole project. So how is it? Is it any same with you, Tatsu?
Well, I agree with Duncan. Yeah, when it comes to the amount, it is same as typical startup investment in the world. Maybe as an angel investor, maybe 10K USD to 50K. I think this amount is enough to join. And as for the stance for investment, I think you need to have a long-term perspective.
Okay.
Maybe, yeah, you know, the African market is still isn't mature. So yeah, let me share one example. So recently Stripe acquired Nigeria's Paystack over for 200 million USD. The CEO of Stripe said, we are thinking of what the world will look like in 2040 to 2050. So it means from now, it takes 20 at least 20 years. So as an investor, we need to have long-term perspective to support them.
And that raises an important point about what an exit looks like in Africa. And that's almost well, there are two types of exits. One is a trade sale, when the company gets acquired by a bigger company looking for market share.
Yeah.
And the other is when a new investor comes in and is willing to buy out some of the existing shareholders on a higher valuation. But there's no other way of doing an exit. And this is rarely going to happen in a few years. You normally do have to take quite a long-term perspective.
Oh, okay, I think we do have a minute or so, few here, for one last question. And I mean, given the current situation of with coronavirus, I mean, are your investment strategies any different now than they were before the crisis?
No, COVID has not really. Most of my investments are in tech platforms, cloud-based services, and for example, Masoni spun off into being a cloud-based core banking system for microfinance institutions. And so microfinance institutions across Africa that had not already moved to the cloud with COVID have had to move. So that's been a support, a benefit for Masoni. Likewise, I've got various healthcare investments, and obviously healthcare is high on everyone's list at the moment.
Yeah, and on to you, Tatsu. With the corona crisis, has your investment strategy changed, or is it about same?
Yeah, I don't change. I didn't change anything. Actually, I just believe the entrepreneur, and yeah, personally, as I said, my most important criteria is entrepreneur, so I can talk with entrepreneurs on Zoom or another way. So when it comes to the stance, I didn't change it. But when it comes to the opportunity, so I won't be able to go to Africa in a few months, right? Because of the COVID-19. So it's difficult to open another investment But still I can invest because I can use a reference by the local people, who are active in Kenya or other Nigeria or yeah, whole African continent. So when it comes to the stance, as I said, I didn't change anything.
Okay, I think we're running out of time here, but I think we're done with our questions. So I would like to give a huge thank you to our two co-founders. And it's been a pleasure for Think Africa to have you both on board. And as I mentioned earlier, I will share a little bit about what Think Africa is planning in the weeks ahead. And if you're opportune, you can join us. So there's going to be the Think Africa Week in November from the 13th. So I'm going to make sure I send you the links personally so you can register. You can follow up online as well. So there's going to be a pitching competition for lots of innovative startups from 5 different African countries. So, and just a little bit more about Think Africa itself. It's a non-profit organization based in Finland with over 50 members. So it focuses on engagement, promotion, and empowerment. So we organize events like this one we're on right now, so that the members can get to interact and get to know more and take that next step in their lives. So a huge thank you to both of you for joining us today on this platform. On behalf of Think Africa, here wish you the best, and we see you again during the Think African Week.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tatsu.